Hello, hi. This is the book that I'm going to recommend you today. Rarely do I want to recommend a book. Usually I'll just want to unbox a book. But this particular book is very interesting because it is in its 14th edition. And rarely has any book lived to its 14th edition. Usually books are up to the 3rd edition, 4th edition. But this book in its 14th edition. And I really want to talk about the authors. And in this book, there are 4 authors. And what's interesting is, or what's sad is, the authors, 2 of them, were, I should say that they have left us in the process of the numerous revision of these books. So this is interesting for the author. There are 4 authors and 2 of the authors have already passed. But it seems that in the 4th edition, they must have done a great job. All right, let's take a look at this content page. Now, to look at this book and to evaluate the book, let's take a look at how they organize the contents. And what strikes me particularly is its layout. It's really colorful. It catches the eye. But more importantly, it is how it organizes everything that you should find in a small business startup for an entrepreneur. Firstly, you've got part 1, entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial life, entrepreneurial integrity and ethics, and business opportunities. And rarely do I see any books that dedicate the first chapter to integrity and ethics. So this should start on the right path to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur. Number 2, the choices as an entrepreneur, starting from scratch or joining an existing business. And this is something that I talked about in the earlier episode where I discussed about a fresh start, franchises, buyouts, or joining family businesses. Part 3, you've got developing new venture business. So this is something that I've never talked about in detail, because developing a totally new venture with a new business idea to meet a market niche, it's not easy, because you do have to do a lot of evaluation, research, market research, product research, competitive research, and intellectual property research. Here in this book, they've actually laid out a new business plan for the new ventures. So you can actually read this up. And also you've got part 4, focusing on the customer, about marketing growth strategies. You've got building customer relation, product and supply chain management, pricing and credit decision, promotional planning, and global marketing. Then you've got part 5, managing growth in a small business. Now this is something that a lot of books will miss out as an entrepreneur startup, because usually you will focus on the startup. But managing growth is actually at the second stage of the growth curve. But in this book, it captures it also. So therefore, this book makes it a very good read, because it has the S-curve growth of a small business. And then you've got part 6, managing the numbers. So this will be interesting and very, very important, not to be understated. Numbers are most important, because you really start a business for making money. Let's take a look at the contents in detail. The entrepreneurial life. You've got entrepreneurial opportunities, entrepreneurship and small business. What is a small business? And the payoff of entrepreneurship, to make money, to be your own boss, to escape a situation, to enjoy a satisfying life for personal satisfaction. Now these are some of the advantages of an entrepreneur, and there are many varieties of an entrepreneurship and how you can get started. And let's take a look at today. Particularly, I would like to talk about finances. Here, the financial plan projecting financial requirements. Now, this is most important because you need to project what is the financial requirement for a business, probably in the first 2 years. How much funds you need to raise, whether you should raise by debt, liability, by borrowing, or whether you should raise by investment as a sell-off of your equity, by shares. So they have pros and cons on each of the strategies. We'll talk about it a little bit later. We'll talk a lot about finances today and a firm's sources of financing. And I'd like to talk about sources of financing, sources close to home, and bank financing. And we'll talk about this in the context of Singapore. Because this book is written in the US, some of the areas will not be really relevant in Singapore, particularly in government support, financial support. But however, in Singapore, there are lots of financial support too. Right, let's take a look at the chapter from 298.